Hi, this is Christina Grenier, and welcome back. This is our part 2 segment of our panel interview session with Steve Farnsworth and Lou Hoffman. So, can you tell me what are the best practices and examples of corporations that use social media well?
Well, the one company that comes immediately to mind for me is EMC, the big data storage company on the East Coast. I think particularly what they've done with their blog community is really savvy. They don't. It's not homogenized. They give their people freedom to really talk on their specific topics. They're not a client, but as I look at the content on the site, it's pretty clear to me that they've given those individuals training on how to blog, how to tell stories. And then the other thing I would point out, and I think it's really impressive too, is they actually have a single blog on work-life balance by a woman named Natalie Corrigan. And it's really interesting to me because if you go in and you actually look at the blog, the look and feel of it is completely different than the standard corporate blog, which I think, you know, they made a conscious effort to give her the freedom to be different. And here you have a company that's fairly technical, and yet you know, they're telling a very human story from one of their employees that in turn puts a face on the company.
I think some of the leaders, I think Intel and Cisco are really good at social media practices. Applied Material is doing something which I love, and you know, Applied Material has reams of very smart engineers, lots of patents, and these guys love to talk visually and will write on boards, but will not put pen to paper, digitally speaking. And so what they do is they'll have an internal reporter go and talk to these people. And the conversation may be a guided topic where they ask about something specific, or it might be just, what are you working on? And from these conversations which they record, they're able to then transcribe that recording and then decide from what they get from that conversation, is this a blog post? Is this multiple blog posts? Is this a story opportunity? And so this is a great way to get people who normally don't talk, send an internal reporter who's going to capture that story, just have that 15-minute conversation. It's 50 minutes out of the day. Anybody can do that. And then look at what they get and decide the best way to use that content.
It's a journalistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So how do you engage executives to use social media to influence their audiences?
Have you been able to do that?
Well, normally it comes down to it's difficult. The people either they gravitate toward it because they have real interest, but I think that what you need to do is you need to find out where they're passionate about telling their stories. Again, you know, talk about what you know, not what you sell. And if you talk to an executive and find out what they're really passionate about, if you're at a party, they'll talk your ear off about what they do. And so if you find out what they're passionate about, then you can then use a technique like the reporter kind of stuff where you get them to use the platform they're comfortable with, if it's Twitter or blogging or something else, participating in a message board, whatever they're comfortable with, to share what they're passionate about. And so finding out what they're passionate about is the first way, I think, to get them motivated and then educating them on the tools and let them play. And that's how you get adoption from the executives. Yeah,
where we've had some success is within a company, you find that one executive who's a natural, who already has gravitated to social media and really turn him or her into the champion. So you work with that individual, you let that person build some successes, and then be able to package and merchandise those successes, but it's not us, the agency or the internal communicators, champion the cause. It's that executive moving things up the chain, and that seems to work out pretty well too.
Playing to your strengths. I mean, once people start doing it and they see that as a part of what is expected of them, others will, and it's made safe for them. When they see others who are naturally gravitate to it and you really leverage them, others, if given the opportunity, will come to it and go, well, can you tell me more about what, you know, the blogging thing or the Twitter thing or whatever the right channel is for that industry.
As personal users of social media, do you prefer one platform over the other, and why? What's your preference? Is it Facebook, Twitter, YouTube?
I want to hear if you're going to say something other than Twitter.
Actually, well, blogging is really for more in-depth parts. Twitter is what I do most. And Facebook for me is where I tend to share more personal things with friends and people that I know, people that I would have a beer with. And Twitter is more like a cocktail party where you just meet all kinds of people and share things. So that's kind of how I divide my time up.
The one social media platform that I love and I think is completely undervalued is SlideShare. I just think enough companies don't engage with it, and it's such a wonderful medium to storytell.
Yeah.
And it's pretty powerful in terms of reach and being able to bring people back to your site. So that's one that I would throw out as something for people to keep on their radar.
I think it was really important to tell, when you talk about storytelling, you're not just talking about, you're talking about as re-envisioning what it's not just a slide deck where you have bullet points. It's where you have images and you're telling a story. Each one's more like a coffee table book at some level, where you tell that story visually and with as few words as possible. So what we're talking about is not just a PowerPoint presentation. It really is this this experience that you look in. Each page tells its own little bite of the story, and it takes you along in that path.
Well, it sounds like it's definitely worth taking out and adding to our social media toolbox. So thank you again for being our guest panelist speakers today.
It was a lot of fun. Good crew. Really good crew.
You're welcome.